Hey, welcome to episode 86 of Fresh Air at 5, my podcast. In this episode, you're going to hear things like, me talk about our backpacking trip last weekend, talk about, I don't know, there's some things to listen to. And at the end of the week, I give you some new YouTube links to some things that I have watched and I'm watching, and so stay tuned for that. So without further ado, here we go. Oh, before you go, make sure you tell someone about Fresh Air at 5. Encourage them to listen if you're listening, and pass this along and click subscribe if you stumble upon this. Thanks. Apple Podcast reviews are much appreciated. So would you do me a favor and put one of those in? Thanks so much. Appreciate it. And without further ado, episode 86, Fresh Air at 5. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Adam Geis.
I'm David Lurch.
We're hosts of the EdTech Distilled podcast, which is a part of the Education Podcast Network.
Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at Fresh Air at 5 or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected. Hey PLN, it's Monday, August 22, 2022, out for Fresh Air at 5. All weekend we went hiking and along the Sunshine Coast. That's why, last week's was called Gone Hiking. So I'm going to post a video here in a little bit about our hiking trip once I get it made. But we had a great time along the Sunshine Coast at Sultry Bay, and we're gone for 3 nights. Fantastic. All right, talk to you soon. Bye. Hey PLN, Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. It's 23 degrees Celsius on the 23rd of August right now, and it's getting toasty, humid out here, and but I am thankful for where I live. Thankful. This past weekend, as you saw maybe on Twitter yesterday, I was just finishing up a hike. We were out on a backpacking trip, a 4-day trip, and 3 nights out in the bush, and stayed up in the Sunshine Coast on some trails, and it was fantastic. We hiked actually about 23 kilometers, and it was fantastic. Gained a bunch of elevation, worked really hard, did hard things, sweated like crazy. But you know what? I'm so thankful for where I live. Thankful for this beautiful country that I have the privilege of going out to see. And as I walk and we hike and we're out there doing these hard things, I think about that which I have, and not from a deficit perspective, but from I'm grateful. And it is so important for me to be outside. The outdoors is such a significant part of what I do, and part of who I am, and different activities that I do outside, from snowshoeing to fishing to hiking to even yard work. The fact that we have outside and we have fresh air, and the fact that I've got my streets that I go walking on every day in the outdoors is so meaningful to me and so important. On episode 20 of Evolving with Gratitude podcast with Lainey Rowell, she has on guest Laura McDonald, who talks about many of these very same things, and talks about the wide and the deep gratitude. And Laura, I appreciate what I heard from you say, and I'm gonna keep talking here for a bit, so I'll be right back with more to say, okay? One more thing for August 23, 2022, as I continue my thoughts on episode 20 of Evolving with Gratitude. as Lainey Rowell talks with Laura McDonald about gratitude and her perspectives on that. And Laura, you said you were being honest in saying that you don't think about those things a whole lot, but apparently you do, because it comes through. We may not put the gratitude label on all the things that we do, but we do think about gratitude, and that is important for living a full and rich life. Without gratitude, I don't think it's possible for us to live fully and richly, and sounds like you're doing just that. So people, I want to shout out Laura McDonald here and have you listen to her talk about gratitude with Lainey on Evolving with Gratitude episode 20, because the message that I hear from this podcast will change your life. Not just from a clinical perspective, clinical in the sense of, or a very technical gratitude that I am thankful for that tree. I am thankful for the fresh air I'm breathing. I'm thankful for, being able to go for a walk and those very kind of primal things. But that we can get into deep gratitude and be grateful in our souls for the things that we have. So backpacking, we went backpacking this past weekend and it was really hard. It was hard, but doing hard things, we only do hard things because we're able to do these hard things, and with determination, we can do a lot of things. So I think if we have gratitude attached with determination, we can push ourselves beyond where we are. Will on its own without gratitude is very, very difficult. But with gratitude, it can take us a lot more places. So thank you, Laura. Thank you, Lainey. I appreciate hearing from you today. And people, go subscribe to Evolving with Gratitude and to follow Laura on Twitter. So you have to listen to the podcast to catch her Twitter handle. It'll be in the tweet as well. Have a great day. Happy Tuesday. Bye-bye. Hey, PLN, welcome to August 24, 2022, Wednesday here, and the sun's coming up behind me, and it's not sunrise yet, so I got out early this morning, which is good. Got a lot of things to do today. Get the vehicle in, to get the rear lift gate arms fixed, so that's on my list. This morning, as I jumped onto my podcatcher, I saw, check this out, episode 150. It's something about a new song, and I don't know. So I didn't know what it was about. But I jumped in, and it's the crossover episode of Check This Out with Ryan and Brian out of California, with Nick and Eric from Got Tech, the podcast from New Jersey. And so, gents, it was awesome to hear all of you talking. And yes, I did a cartwheel. I was walking down the street, and I'm like, I got to figure out how to do a cartwheel. Do I remember that? And I did the cartwheel, and I'm super pumped because I get to listen to all four of you guys jam on about ed tech and about making a difference and about taking care. And that was fantastic to hear. And so thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge together and hearing you guys talk about what's coming for your school year. And, in the design space, understanding design thinking, I think, is a paramount to all of these different things that you've talked about, where we start off with the empathy piece and have the designer work with the user to figure out why. The cookbook, why are we doing that? Are we raising money for the charity in Kenya that one teacher at your school, Eric, has, and Nick, about, raising funds for education and infrastructure in Kenya. So having that empathy part is important. Ryan and Brian, you guys talked about esports and about, your broadcasting class, and what is the point of that? Getting the kids to understand the point of it so that there's learning going on. And I like how you, Ryan, are talking about check-in forms, and this is where your grade's coming from. So, hang on, I'll be right back. Talk to you in a sec. One more thing for August 24, 2022, continuing on with listening to and reflecting on episode 150. Check this out. That would be about 119 for Got Tech, the podcast, as Eric and Nick collaborated with Ryan and Brian to bring us a wealth of stuff. And I was going on about how, Ryan, you got your check-ins and how the students check in and they have to propel their own learning. The senior students, how do they do that? And how do you find out if they are learning, and how they report on projects that we're working on and what they are doing for themselves? That is a big challenge in this space of project-based learning. How do you take the students along with you for a journey and then have them talk about what they have learned about? One of my students, this past year, we built a yearbook for our school. Very first time, found a self-publishing guide from a printer out in Victoria, British Columbia, which is nearby, but not close enough to go see. And how do we do that? How do we meet the needs of what the printer needs in a PDF so that they can print it and make a printed copy? Kind of like the cookbook idea. I like that idea. But taking the self-publishing guide and putting it in the hands of the students and say, I need you to read this and I need you to come back with a bunch of points about what you learned about. And I told them, I said, I could do this whole thing, figure it out myself and build a yearbook, but it would not be the learning that I want you guys to do. And they were like, okay, we understand that. But at the end, they're like, well, Mr. Carpenter, you just dragged us through this, and you just gave us directions and each class and we did stuff, but you told us what to do. And trying to get away from the teacher told me what to do to make things. So that's important. And I'm excited about World Ready Technologies, Eric and Nick, about your second course and the graphic stuff. So Brian, Eric, Nick, you guys rock. Keep it going, bros. And I look forward to episode 151 coming in 2 years. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN Thursday, August 25, 2022. Beautiful morning, 17 degrees Celsius. As I stepped out the door, it's not cold. Got to get it done early, so I did. At 5 a.m., I stepped out the door and I started walking, and I listened to the Aspire to Lead podcast with Josh Stamper, as he has on guest Katie Mingle, who is a member of the Teach Better team. And Katie, it is awesome to hear from you. I've been connected with Teach Better since probably 4 years ago, and know Jeff Gargas and Ray Hewart. Haven't stepped into the Teach Better team like yourself, but I admire the work that Teach Better does, and thank you for stepping in to be supportive and make Teach Better even better. Excited about the conference. I am not coming to the conference. My wife is going on vacation in October, and I'm home dadding it, and so I will be here, but excited about conferencing and the fact that you guys get to have your second conference, so that's fantastic. Joshua, thanks for your podcast and having Katie on. It was great to hear you two talk, just so not casually, but in a non-threatening way about education and how we need to be leaders in our spaces, and working with other teachers is important, giving students voice is important, and how we do that so that it's just not overwhelming. So I'm preparing for myself for the new school year. Got a lot of things going on in my head. The biggest thing right now is the transition from Google to Microsoft, but that's just a technology piece. But the real teaching will happen as we dig into learning about how to create projects and do different media design things, and my online stuff with chemistry. So yes. All right. Thank you, Katie. Great to hear from you. Take a listen to Aspire to Lead, as Katie Mingle's a guest with Josh that just happened recently this week. All right. Have a fabulous day. Bye. One more thing for August 25, 2022, as I'm recording content right now for episode 86 of Fresh Air at 5, my podcast. I listened to episode 93 of Defying University with Lindsay Titus. And, now that you say it, Lindsay, I did notice, but not intentionally enough noticed that you hadn't been putting out content. I was just wondering, maybe she isn't putting out content. I had lots of other content I was taking in and listening, but thank you for episode 93 as you stop by the mic after you've been off for 10 months and reasons such as pregnancy and a new little one and a new job as a vice principal in your first year and all the things like that. And in this episode, you bring us 5 lessons that you have learned about yourself and things from dealing with the fear, dealing with, redoing things and restarting things and not needing to start from scratch, but from a foundation. And there's 3 other things in there. And so I encourage you as a listener of mine to go take a listen to episode 93 of the Define University podcast with Lindsay Titus and take a listen to what she's talking about. Today's a great day to start listening to her podcast because she has such great content. I have grown from her over the past 2 years of listening to her podcast, 3 years. And, I appreciate you, Lindsay. I appreciate what you're doing. And I appreciate your vulnerability today in saying that this is hard. You're out there saying it's hard, and we need to come and walk. We could come and walk along that with you, or we could walk in our own space of defining ourselves like you talk about. All right, that's all I got for today. Have a fabulous Thursday, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Okay, bye. Hey PLN, welcome to August 26, 2022. Most of you out there are already well into your August 26. So this isn't early, it's a bit later, about 8 o'clock a.m. right now as I'm out here walking, and that's okay. I'm enjoying the sun, and the sun is in space, and the space is all around us, and there's stars in space, there's the moon, there's all these things. And this morning I listened to episode 57 of Science 360 with Tim Stevenson, and he talked about everything with space with a guest, Bill Burnett. And Bill is a planetarium director of instruction and works in the planetarium industry and takes the planetarium stuff to schools to teach students about astronomy. And Tim and Bill have this amazing conversation. Wow, holy cow. That's the word that's at the top of the description for the show notes for this episode of Science 360, episode 57. Wow, exclamation mark is what's on the very top that Tim puts there. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of stuff. Okay, I can't recall all the stuff, but I did learn from listening to this today some things. I learned that a supermoon that is talked about every year that just happened in August is the closest point at which the moon in its elliptical orbit is to Earth in a year. Okay, so what's that matter? But what matters is that people are like, oh, did you see the supermoon? I'm like, yeah, I saw the moon, but I've never been able to see a difference in the size of the moon. And that's what these guys talked about. They said that you're not going to see that. It's like saying that a 14.5-inch pizza is, significantly smaller than a 15-inch pizza, or that, you can distinguish those by looking at them, and you can't. So that's curious. Another thing was the Starlink satellite train that went through the sky during the Perseus meteor shower the other night. That was going to be a more common phenomenon coming up in the future as Elon Musk and Starlink are going to be putting up 12,000 satellites up into the sky. Internet all around the world. Okay, take a listen. Talk to you. Bye. One more thing for August 26, 2022. All right, so this last segment this week, I am not going to talk about podcasts that I've listened to, but I'm going to talk about some things I've watched on YouTube recently that I want to share with you. And I'm going to put the links to the YouTube videos that I'm speaking of in the show notes. So go below and take a look at the show notes so you can follow along if you like. And so I'm going to talk about some things that I've been watching on YouTube. All right, I don't sit typically and just watch YouTube mindlessly. I subscribe to a couple of channels. One of them is Martin Dollard. He He's a Dutchman who has bought a place in the Swiss Alps and is fixing it up. And he is going through the process of renovating this stone cabins. There's 2 cabins on the property, and he just documents his journey. That's pretty cool. I like that a lot, watching the design process in action and just the work of iteration and figuring things out. Another opportunity that I've got to watch is by a guy named Brent Gill from Wait For It Films. Wait number 4 Films for it. And he is a fishing resort operator, and he has taken on the project recently of working at Piney Point on the Sheridan Lake in the Caribou of BC, and he has documented spring startup and the journey of running a fishing resort. So that's called Running a Fishing Resort in the Caribou, and so that link will be there. All right, I'm gonna maybe run out of time here, but something else that came up in the feed after I was watching that last night was a National Geographic show about a free diver called Experiencing the Undersea World Through the Eyes of a Free Diver. And it's about 8 minutes long, National Geo, pretty fantastic. And then after that came up a live concert by Anya Rani, and she's a Polish pianist, musician, and composer, and has written a bunch of music. Interesting, curious. I listened to that, so I'm going to put that link in there for you to listen to as well. So some video to watch out of this. Thanks. Have a happy Friday. Bye.
As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Cold Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.